always tell me for a reason. I'm a little bit shaken. Left the house in plenty of time to get here, and the highway just stalled in front of me at Jim Miller and I-30. Turned out it was a corpse laying in the middle lane of I-30 at Jim Miller. So I don't know what's going on there, but we'll pray for that family. So I got really nervous. I tried to get here 15 minutes early and ended up being 5 minutes late. But with that happened, thank God that we made it. That person couldn't be me. So I'm a bit shaken with that because they had already covered the body up, signifying that he didn't make it. So there's about 5 cars involved. So pray for that situation which is going on right now. And I always solicit your prayers for me and the South Central congregation for the work that we try to do in our community and for the work that goes on in the Church of Christ. And I must say that I'm grateful to this group that has chosen me to kick off this lectureship. We just left Las Vegas. I was teasing all the brothers. I said, y'all get to rest a few days. I landed Thursday night and I'm the first speaker. So I have an excuse. I have an excuse. And then I'm so grateful as well to the congregation where I preach. I see that we're well represented here. That doesn't happen too often. So y'all, I'm not bragging, but I'm bragging. I'm going to ask them to stand because I did see a few faces. All of the South Central people, please stand so they can see how beautiful we look. Amen. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support. I have been assigned a task, and I won't spend 30 minutes on my introduction. Where David Williams go?
I'm right here.
There he is.
I'm right here.
I'll tell you when you start that clock.
It's already started.
He said it's already started. We do, again, solicit your prayers, and we'll get right into the subject. But I believe the subject is what's it? The things that are dangerous facing the church. Okay, right up there in my face. I'm so and wrapped up into my own subject within that topic, and it is really a passionate subject with me because of the things that are going on in the Lord's church right now. So the text that's been given is, again, Matthew chapter 16 and verse 18, which we're all familiar with this text. If you are a member of the Lord's body, you should be familiar with this text. If you are a member of the Church of Christ and you're not familiar with this, you might ought to consider what you obeyed. Amen. Now, thank God that somebody said 25 years old with all the years of experience, baptized in 1977, so I think I'm 43 years old in the gospel. And I thank God for that. So, but in our text, without further ado, I won't hold you all night because we have until midnight, according to Paul.
27 minutes. Your name is Paul. That's right.
Amen. But it's the text, the subject that's been given to me is Matthew chapter 16 and verse number 18, where it says, "And I say also unto thee that thou art Peter, and upon this rock," Jesus said, "I will build my church." Yes, sir. He backed it up by saying, "The gates of hell shall not prevail against it." And then in the 19th verse he said, "And I will give unto you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatsoever you shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." Yes, sir. Then he gave me some more verses, and I said, why in the world did he do this to me? Well, he put in a couple of verses along with the church about women usurping authority. And let the woman learn to keep silence. I was trying my best, and I prayed, and I got mad at Rufus, and I prayed, and I got mad at Rufus, and I prayed, and I got mad at Rufus. I don't know where I am right now. Am I praying, or am I mad at Rufus? To try to tie these two things together. But then I thought about it for a while, and I said, after I prayed and I got mad at Rufus, I actually became thankful to Rufus. And I thought about how the Lord works throughout the ages, where he sent Moses to rescue the children of Israel out of Egypt, and he led them across the Red Sea. How he chose Noah to build the ark, and he preached for 120 some odd years the same message to the whole world. And out of all that preaching, only 8 were saved. And out of all that leading, the people told Moses, you should have left us back there where there were no graves. Now I have to come around here and hang around this grave. But then I thought about the church and where the world is right now. Is the church becoming a denomination? And when the Lord instituted the church, he did not send a prophet. He did it himself.
That's right. That's right.
Do you recall when he said, who do men say that I, the Son of Man, am?
Yeah.
And they named all John the Baptist, Elias, Jeremiah, so just one of the prophets.
Well.
And Jesus said, who do you?
Yeah.
And I say to the church, when we ask the question, is the church a denomination? Who do you say that Jesus the Christ, the Son of Man, is?
Well.
He said, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God.
Yeah.
And Jesus praised him by saying, blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, flesh and blood. And the reason I put emphasis on flesh and blood is because we're asking this question today, is the church a denomination? Because flesh and blood has put themselves into religion, and they've gone and you talk to somebody about the church, and then the first thing he says, let me talk to my preacher or my pastor.
Well.
Come on. When Jesus wanted the church instituted, he did it himself. Today there are thousands of religious denominations. Thus it is no surprise, Rufus, thank you, that this question should be sincerely asked by anyone. Questions like, is the church one among many?
Well.
Do we look for another?
Yes, sir.
Are women preachers allowed in the Church of Christ?
Well.
Are women song leaders allowed in the Church of Christ? So what is a denomination? The denomination is a religious organization that's larger than the local church, smaller than the redeemed in the aggregate. Therefore, it is something that comes in between, separate and distinct from the original church of the Bible at both ends of the line.
Yes, sir.
Denomination signifies a difference between what was intended from the beginning versus what is actually being practiced now. A part, a division, a segment, or even a sect. My first point is, when Christ introduced the church, he only intended for there to be one.
Amen. Amen.
There was never any other.
Right.
Matthew 16 and 18. I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Isaiah 2 and 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days, the mountains of the Lord's house shall be established. And the top of the mountains shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto them. Fix me, y'all. Fix me. Make sure I'm right before I sit down here. This is the church of denomination.
Come on, brother.
1 Corinthians 12 and 12 and following, it says, for as the body is two. Fix me, guys, and has many members. It's one and has many members, and all of the members of that one body, being many are one body, so also is Christ. And verse number 27 says, now you are the body and not the bodies of Christ.
Yes, sir.
And you are members in particular. Galatians 1 and verse number 7 says, which is not another. That means there's only one. But there be some that trouble you and it would pervert the gospel of Christ. 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verses number 2 says, for I am jealous over you with godly jealousy, for I have espoused you to one husband. Come on, somebody. Is the church a denomination? When I read my book, I see one, and one. Ephesians 4 and 4, there is one body, one spirit, even as you are called, in one hope of your calling. Ephesians 5 and 25 through 27, it says, husbands, love your wives, even as Christ also loved the church. And he gave himself for them. Fix me, y'all. Make sure I don't go off track here. That he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of water by the word, that he might present them to himself, a glorious churches. Fix me, y'all. Come on. I'm looking for some Church of Christ people here. Not having a spot, wrinkle, or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife. And they two shall be
One flesh, brother.
This is a great mystery. But I speak concerning, in verses 31 through 33, Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife as himself.
Mercy. Help us, brother.
So from the scripture that I read, which was only a few places, y'all, I could just go on and on. If you don't believe me, ask South Central. I can go on. And I can go on. We see that Christ only built one church.
Yes, sir. It's all he built. It's all he built.
One.
And in my simple message, I just answered the question. Is the church a denomination? When I read one, there's nowhere where I can see that. But the second point I do want to make, that anything that modifies, I want everyone in this room to hear me. Anything that modifies the one creates and constitutes a denomination.
Amen. Anything.
Anything.
Yes, sir.
Or anyone
Yes, sir.
that modifies the one
Yes, sir.
creates or constitutes a denomination. One plus anything creates too many.
Amen.
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 1 plus 0.1 is 1.1, which is plural, which is more than one. Because the question that he gave me was about the women usurping authority in the church. Because we have brothers and sisters in our brotherhood that are professing the gospel of Jesus Christ to the word, but they have women song leaders up. That makes 1.1. That constitutes a denomination.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
1 times anything besides itself creates, and come on you mathematicians, 1 times anything except itself is a denomination. It creates a fraction which equals a half. That means that you split the church in half. 1 minus anything creates a denomination. It is less than 1.
That's right.
Lord have mercy. 1 one divided by anything except itself equals a denomination. So that means that if Christ is the head of the church, and if there's two members that agree with Christ, 2 over 2 equals, come on you mathematicians, 1. So all you members have to be on one accord. I know Paul talked about that in 1 Corinthians. 5 over 5 equals 1. 70 million over 70 million equals 1. So all of the members have to follow the 1. Come on, y'all got the answer, don't you? Yeah. So if one man wants to go and follow off on his own, it creates a fraction.
Yes, sir.
It divides the church.
Yeah.
Women usurping authority over the man. 1 Corinthians chapter 14 and verse number 34. Women breaking, and I put in parentheses, biblical silence. Because they said that we men are trying to mute the women. Oh, we're not trying to do that.
That's right.
But there's a time.
Yeah.
And that's not my lesson, but there's a time for a woman to speak.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I'd be a woman, I'd probably be having the same argument. You know what? I have to be obedient to the scriptures.
Yeah.
All right.
So, women breaking biblical silence, 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 11 and 12, right?
Yes, sir.
That's the scripture. And we know that adding to or taking away from the scriptures, Revelations 22, verses 18 and 19, the Bible tells us that they will be written, the plagues that are written in this book, right? So we cannot add to it. Thus, women preachers, remember my point, anything that modifies the one creates or constitutes a denomination. Women preachers. I'm putting emphasis on that because Rufus gave that. Y'all blame him. But I added some stuff to make it sound good to you. Instruments of music. And I'm going to put this in public right now. I'm going to put it in public. And I think most of you know, I don't brag about it, but it's the truth. I'm a professional singer.
Yes, sir.
I sing to thousands of people with orchestras. I'm talking about 100, 200, 300 piece orchestras. When I come to the Lord's house, I dismiss.
Right.
When I go over there, I'm entertaining. And I let them know that I'm entertaining.
All right.
I don't believe when I'm singing. I just believe that you'll pay me when I finish. And I'm going to take the money that you pay me and go and pay the Lord what's due him. And when I preach the gospel, it's going to be without instruments of music. So I say that and I qualify that by saying this, that any time when the Bible tells us to shun the appearance of evil as well. So when you are preaching against instruments of music, come on somebody, y'all got quiet right now.
Yes, sir. Come on,
And you want to go and sound like something that you preach against.
Yeah.
Okay, Tinnion, what are you talking about?
man.
I don't like this water bottle. Does anybody have a Budweiser can? I want to pour my water into a Budweiser can. Why? Because I can. And it's not a violation because I will not be getting drunk, but I'll simply be taking and consuming my water out of the Budweiser can. See, all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful, but I will not be brought under the power of any. So anything that constitutes what even sounds like an instrument of music, when we preach and teach the holy gospel that we talk all week about in Las Vegas, the gospel of Jesus Christ, the death and burial and resurrection of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we can't add anything to it, or we can't put anything that causes a stumbling block on occasion to my brother.
Amen, my brother.
All right.
Amen. Amen.
So I said, if you like water, what makes you want to drink it out of a beer can?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So why do you want to sound like a cymbal or a drum? I'm asking a question.
All right.
Before I even call you wrong, I'm saying if you preach against instruments of music, then why do you make sounds like a trumpet?
Preach it.
Riddle me this, Batman. Non-biblical pastors. Yeah, we get so important that people walk and they put it in there. And let me just stop for station identification. I got mad at the Dallas Opera just about 2 years ago. I did a supporting role, and they said, send me your bio, and I sent my bio. I said, I sung here, and I went here, and I educated there, and I sang opera there, and I'm a minister of the Church of Christ at South Central. No, they didn't. When they printed it in the program, they scratched it. And I went to administration. I said, you can take all of that stuff out of there about singing, but next time I give you a bio, you make sure you put Church of Christ in. I don't care what kind of education I got. There's the Lord's church in there.
Amen.
Yes, I did go to them, and I told them that I was upset with them about it because I've been singing for 31 years, and when you read my bio, the Church of Christ has always been there. And somebody caught it, and they took it out. It did not eliminate itself.
Well, amen, brother.
Non-biblical pastors, even, this is a little bit of a bite here. How much time I got? Yeah, I got 30 minutes. Some of our members want to make us seem more important. So when they introduce us, they say, this is my pastor. I don't want to embarrass them, but sometimes I sure want to jump in. And so I recently heard this. I was somebody's pastor recently. You record this, right, Junior?
Oh, yeah.
I am not a pastor. Right. There is a such thing as a biblical pastor.
Right.
That's not my subject, but anything added to the one creates
Denomination.
Yeah. Amen, brother. All right.
Yes, unfortunately, many unbiblical practices have crept into the Lord's church. And yes, in many instances, some of these should be recognized as a denomination. As I conclude, because I'm running out of time.
Come on, brother.
The question on the floor was, or is the Church of Christ becoming a denomination? There are two answers to this question.
Yes, there are.
Which makes this a so-called loaded question.
Well,
Answer number one, by the world standard, yes, the Church of Christ. I want everybody here to hear me out. Don't you go and stop, and don't you push stop on that thing right now and say, I got Brother Tinnion on wax, and he said the Church of Christ is a denomination. You better go to Romans 10 and 13 and read all the way down to verse 21, okay?
Right.
Whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. You keep reading. So, Junior, don't you push that stop button. I said by the world's standard, yes, the church is becoming a denomination. The New Testament church is divine in origin, Isaiah 2.
yes, sir. Yes.
The denomination is man-made without divine origin.
Right.
The New Testament church will last forever, Daniel 2:44. The denomination will be rooted up, Matthew 15 and 13.
Right.
The New Testament church is designated by the Bible, Romans 16 and 16.
Yes, sir.
Acts 20 and 28, 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse number 2. The denomination is named after men, is self-governed, it's talked about days, ordinances, etc., etc., etc. The New Testament church came from the first century in its origin, Acts chapter 2, verses 41 through 47.
Yes, sir.
The denomination started in the 7th century, in 606, I believe it was, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Even if it started tomorrow, it's too late.
Right.
All right? The New Testament church has heavenly headquarters. The first, Ephesians chapter 1 and verse number 22, 1 Peter 3 and 22, denomination has earthly headquarters. The New Testament church is Bible only. The denomination has creeds, manuals, disciplines, and catechisms. The New Testament church, we are added to the Lord's church. The denomination you join. Come on, y'all know where I'm going. The New Testament church is essential to salvation. And the denomination, you can be saved and never become a member. Come on, somebody. The New Testament church is blood-bought. Chapter 20 and verse number 28. In the denomination, there's no such thing. No price paid. The New Testament church is entered by hearing, believing, repenting, and confessing, and being baptized. Hello, somebody. The denomination is governed by human laws of entrance and induction. They have induction ceremonies for them on their all these main days. Oh, y'all. Oh, how the New Testament tells that Jerusalem is his birthplace.
Yes, sir.
And the denomination was started at different places all over the world with various beginnings.
Yes. Well, man, go ahead.
Answer number 2. By God's standard, record this part.
Yes.
You can scratch all of this stuff I just said, okay? But by God's standard, no.
Amen.
I'm answering the question.
Yeah.
No, there's nothing man can do to change what God has sanctioned.
Amen. Say that.
In our text in Matthew chapter 16, verse number 18, I'm running out of time. You know he was there and Peter said, be it far from you, Lord, you can't do this. And he said, get behind me, Satan, for you're an offense. And he said 6 days later, he went up into a high mountain apart. In Matthew chapter 17 and verse number 4, when somebody tried to add something to what the Lord had sanctioned himself, he didn't send a prophet to do it, but somebody tried to add something to what God said, and God said, my son is good enough. Hear ye him. That's what he told him, right? He said, my son is a person that I'm well pleased. If God is well pleased with something, what thinks a man that he can get any kind of education to go in and add something to God? Who told you that you had the authority to add anything to the church? The church is not a denomination. The church is the church of Christ. It will be the church of Christ until we die. God will judge according to the scripture, and we will not judge according to feelings. When you walk down the aisle, you won't have a band, you won't have a boombox, you won't have a trumpet. You'll be you and God sitting at the throne, and he will judge you out of the things that are written in the book of life. If you came to his church and you obeyed the gospel according to the scriptures and didn't add or take away what God said, then you can get into heaven. Otherwise, it is a denomination.
Yeah.
God bless you.